Now this right here and this behind me is everything that I love about this part of the south of France. Its classics, tradition, the history. I mean, look at the beautiful chateau behind me. Its glorious turret roof. Really is a spectacular place. As well, we've got these amazing vines over here, up to 40 years old, these vines, and it produces this amazing Chardonnay grape, one of my favourite wines there is. But what I've done with this is mix together a percentage of the Chardonnay grape with some Marsanne, and it gives you a sort of a white Burgundy-esque sort of taste, lovely rich but light white wine. And it all stems from these gorgeous Chardonnay grapes. And tasting these is quite interesting because you taste the future of what's about to be going in the bottle. But this turns to this with a little bit of passion, a little bit of time, and a lot of skill and a lot of hard work for you to enjoy at home. Good, isn't it? So now I'm going to show you the perfect recipe to go with it. Now this appears quite a difficult dish, but in essence it's actually quite straightforward and quite simple. It's a simple pan-fried fish, and I'm going to use some turbot for this, with a lovely cauliflower puree, asparagus, and a fantastic white wine sauce, which is using a little bit of this stuff. So the first thing we're going to do, we get the priorities right first. Need to have a taste, because this works brilliantly with this dish. Not only to drink with, it's really good that, but also to make a wonderful little white wine sauce. So the first thing we do is talk about the build-up of this dish. Really, it's quite straightforward. First of all, it uses a cauliflower puree. This is just a standard cauliflower. What you want to do with this is just take the cauliflower and take the florets out. You take the green off, and the little florets, what you do is you just pick out these little florets, break them all up, and then cook these. They want a good sort of 10 minutes in the pan, but rather than cook them in water, use a combination of water and milk, or all milk. It's entirely up to you, but milk and the cauliflower, and you want it to go slightly soft. The most important bit is this is not al dente. This is not firm to the bite, because then what you do, once you've got that and you've softened them up, you drain off the cauliflower, but keep some of the milk and water mixture and blend it up in a food processor. And what you end up with, after about 5 minutes blending, and keep the food presser going. The best thing to do this is doing a liquidizer, really, rather than one with a blade. What you want to end up with is this fantastic puree. This tastes amazing. Now you can flavour this with a little bit of vanilla, funnily enough, with cauliflower. It works brilliantly with shellfish, which has also worked amazing with this wine. But it also works fantastically well with a touch of curry. A little bit of curry powder in here works really well if you wanted a vegetarian sort of alternative with a roasted bit of cauliflower, which is really nice. So that's that one. Meanwhile, over here, what we're going to do is that's your nice little cauliflower puree. I'm going to fire up this stove to get it nice and hot. Is then I'm going to concentrate on cooking our fish, because the way that we can do this is quite simply cook it. Now I've got some beautiful turbot over here. You can use any flat fish as you want. You can actually use turbot on the bone. It's entirely up to you. The only difference being, if you are going to do fish on the bone, generally it's much thicker, about 1 inch thick. You'd need to pan fry it and then finish it off in the oven. With fish this sort of size, particularly this little turbot, it's a good idea to keep the skin on, because this doesn't take very long to cook at all. So you want to get the pan nice and hot first, which that is, and then we can grab a little knob of butter and get the butter foaming in the pan, like that. Now, whenever you're cooking fish like this, try and keep the skin on, particularly on turbot. It protects the white fish underneath. So get it nice and foaming first of all. The pan is really, really hot. That's the key to this. So get it nice and hot, and then you can pop the fish straight in the pan, skin side down, like that. Now, a lot of the time you panic at this stage because people always cook fish last minute. You can actually pop this and then leave it out just to rest nicely as well. So, quick wash the hands. Now we can season it up with some black pepper. You can see as this is cooking now, it's going to start to seal and colour nicely. So a little bit of salt. I love French salt. Best salt in the world. Then, as you start to get a nice little colour on it, keep your eye on it, but you want to make sure it's sort of halfway cooking up the side of the pan like that. You can turn that over, just keep checking on it. You don't want the butter to burn, so although you want it nice and hot, the key to it, don't burn that butter. You get it lovely and nut brown, which is perfect, but not burnt. So once we get to that stage, you can see the fish cooking halfway up the side. Then we can just turn that over. Look at that. And by cooking in that butter, you get this amazing taste from it as well. That lovely nutty brown colour. Now, if you wanted to, you could add a little squeeze of lemon in there just to glaze it like that. But I'm just going to cook this on the other side. So fish like this, it's only going to take about 2 minutes to cook. And then we can take this out of the pan and leave that to rest. And then we're going to make our wonderful little sauce with this as well as the asparagus. So what I've done is I've got some beautiful little asparagus over here. Now the old way to bend the asparagus and where it bends and snaps, I don't like that. I like it where it just starts to change colour really with the asparagus, but you don't want to waste any of it. We can keep that as well and use that again for a little puree if you wanted to. But the asparagus, we just take a nice little bit of salt, salted boiling water, and it wants to go in here for about a couple of minutes, which gives us enough time to get on and do our sauce. Now, our sauce, this is a simplified version of our sauce. We're going to use this amazing wine, because whatever you put in your stomach for that, you use a little bit for the sauce, keep it all going. So we're just going to take a little bit of the white wine here. This is a classic white wine sauce, really simple. Over here I've got a little bit of stock. This is the bones from the turbot that I don't want to waste. And all I've done is boil and then simmer our bones. And you cook the stock for about 20 minutes, no more. It's completely opposite of making sort of a chicken stock, which is 24 hours, and beef stock's 48 hours. Fish stock is only 20 minutes and then off, otherwise it goes quite bitter. So you've got the asparagus over here, which is not far off cooked. Again, be careful not to overcook this. It's perfectly cooked as it is after about a minute. Now the idea of this sauce is you've got the white wine in here, you've got the stock. In essence, it's a pure classic sauce. You get sort of a fish sauna from it as well. But what you want to do is reduce it down. Now the temptation always with this is to add things to it, the butter and the cream, too soon. And what you end up with it, very liquid. You want to reduce this all down. By reducing it all down, it strengthens the flavour and changes the texture. It goes sort of jellified, and that's where you use really good quality fish stock or chicken stock when you're making a sauce, and not the powdered version, because you want it to reduce down and you get this sort of texture that is unique to this. So our asparagus is cooked. I'm going to drain that off. And always with asparagus, while it's still warm, we can add a little bit of seasoning, black pepper, touch of salt, and then obviously a little bit of butter. So you want it to glaze the asparagus as well. So that's just going to sit there. So we've got our asparagus. I'll just switch that off. Our cauliflower puree is nice and warm. Our fish is now cooked, which is looking good. And our sauce, and you see this sauce reducing down. You've got plenty of time at this point, because we can then start to finish off and plate up. So we can take some fresh chives now. If you don't want to put fresh chives in it, use a little bit of parsley. Or even better, which is wonderful, a little bit of chervil. You've got that lovely aniseedy sort of flavour. And this is where, when I first came over to France as a young kid, I learnt the art of making a classic beurre blanc sauce. It was hake and beurre blanc that I was told to make, aged 12 years old. And I did that for 7 weeks solid. That's the only dish that the chef would allow me to make in the kitchen. So I've had a bit of practice over the years of reducing this down. But you reduce this down and then finish it off with butter. But we're going to then take this mixture now and then start to plate it all up. So we've got a lovely plate here. We can then take our buttered asparagus. Look at that. And you see the lovely colour that you get from this. It's lovely and green. Not overcooked. A few spears on the top. You've got our gorgeous bit of fish. Now, the thing is with turbot, it's got this skin on. And what I would do, really, depends, it's entirely up to you. I would peel this off. Now, if you're using things like plaice and bits and pieces, you can leave this on. But turbot skin is quite thick, so you can just remove it if you want. It's entirely up to you. Some people like it, but sometimes, particularly with the bigger turbot, the fish skin is quite thick and quite unpleasant to taste, really. So what we want to do is just pop maybe one of them on, like that. And you can see now our sauce is almost reduced down to nothing. I mean, look at this. It's almost gone to nothing. So in there, you've just got the white wine, the stock, but you can see the texture changes. It goes like this, jellified. Then we add a touch of cream. A little bit of cream to this. And then this is where we finish it all off. So nice little bit of white wine. In we go with the stock. In we go with the cream. The French have a wonderful term called monter au beurre. It's to thicken a sauce with butter. And you just add a little knob of butter to it. And you're in France, so use a proper knob of butter. When you finish this off, this is the classic way to finish off a sauce, by the addition of butter. It's doing two things. It's enriching it, and it's thickening it, and it's adding flavour to it. You get this amazing texture. Look at that texture from that. It's thick. At that point, we can add our chives. Like that. I can switch the heat off now. And then we can add our cauliflower puree. So this is just a dollop of this amazing cauliflower puree. This is an amazing hit you get from it. It's delicious, this. And then finally, you've got your wonderful sauce with this as well. Look at that. Really simple, a classic way to make the sauce, but don't forget, using some of this amazing white wine. There's a little bit in the glass for me. Cheers.